Once upon a time, in a faraway enchanted forest, lived the most whimsical group of woodland creatures you could ever imagine. These weren't just any animals, though. They had magical abilities and loved celebrating every occasion with flair. Halloween was their absolute favorite time of year because it meant one thing: the annual Halloween parade. The parade was a sight to behold. This year, the animals had outdone themselves in crafting their costumes. Each one was more creative and sillier than the next, and they were ready to show the world that Halloween in the Enchanted Forest was no ordinary celebration. First up was Jasper the raccoon, who decided to dress as a wizard, but not just any wizard. He fashioned his cloak out of fallen leaves, and for his magic staff he chose a stick that was far too big for him, making him trip every few steps. His pointy hat, which he had proudly made from a giant pumpkin leaf, kept slipping down over his eyes. But he didn't mind. Jasper waddled through the forest, mumbling made-up spells and accidentally turning mushrooms into sparkly jelly beans. Next, we had Bella the Beaver, who took a more unusual approach to her costume. She had transformed herself into a spooky pumpkin, but instead of carving a regular jack-o'-lantern, Bella hollowed out a huge pumpkin and squeezed herself inside. She rolled around the forest in her orange pumpkin shell, occasionally stopping to nibble on a piece of the pumpkin because, let's face it, Bella could never resist a snack, even if it was part of her costume. And then there was Ziggy the chipmunk, who decided to become, wait for it, a vampire bat. Not just any vampire bat, though. Ziggy had borrowed some blackberries from a nearby bush to smear across his face, creating a dramatic vampire bite look, and crafted tiny wings out of pine needles. Unfortunately, his wings were much too small to actually fly, so instead, Ziggy kept tripping over them, looking more like a bat that had forgotten how to fly. He ran around trying to look menacing, but everyone agreed he was just too adorable to be spooky. Meanwhile, Hazel the deer opted for a more graceful costume. She turned herself into a cloud, a fluffy, glittery cloud. Hazel covered herself in cotton fluff and sprinkled glitter that twinkled under the moonlight. With every step she took, the glitter would fall like tiny stars, making the forest glow. However, the fluff was so big, it got caught on every single tree branch she passed, and soon enough she looked more like a runaway snowball than a graceful cloud. Now let's not forget Oscar the owl. Oscar decided to dress up as a taco. Why a taco, you ask? No one knew. He simply declared, "Woo doesn't love tacos?" And that was that. Oscar perched himself high in the treetops, wearing his carefully crafted taco costume made from moss, leaves, and wildflowers. Every now and then, he'd swoop down and hoot, "Taco attack!" before flying back up, leaving the other animals in stitches. At the end of the parade, the creatures gathered around the enchanted lake, where a magical feast awaited them. Pumpkin pies, caramel apples, and a giant cauldron of bubbling berry brew. The animals spent the night dancing, sharing spooky stories and munching on treats. As the moon reached its highest point in the sky, the parade finally came to a close. The magical creatures sat together under the glowing trees, happy and proud of their wonderful, whimsical Halloween celebration. It wasn't just about the spooky fun, but the laughter, friendship, and joy they shared with one another that made the night truly special. And so, every year, the Halloween parade in the Enchanted Forest became a grand, silly tradition, where magical creatures from far and wide came together to celebrate in the quirkiest, most delightful costumes they could dream up. Happy Halloween, where the fun never ends and the giggles never stop.